Love it. Excellent. I will forget all of it, but you know what?
Yeah.
Thanks for the explanation before.
And I'm just going to like punk you and just be like, Lita, okay, do the thing we talked about. You're going to be like,
yeah. I'm like, what? Take my top off? Okay.
Yeah. My goodness, what is happening? Well, I think we got a cold open now.
I told you not to come down here.
Granny, don't!
Autobots, transform and roll out!
Mike! 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 So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike! So many Mike!
Well, hey, welcome back for another thrilling episode of Two Mikes, Two Furious Animated Transformers. This is the podcast where two guys that have almost the same name talk about Transformers Animated one episode at a time from two different points of view. My name is Mike Seibert. I have never watched Transformers Animated before this project, and joining me on this animated adventure is TFA superfan, serial rewatcher, if you will, Michael Andrews.
Yes, I have only seen Transformers Animated. I've never seen another show in my entire life. That's the dynamic here.
Wow, and I say serial rewatcher. I guess I wasn't joking. It's like that's a deep level of session, my friend.
Yeah, it's I stay focused. It's all for the show. It's all for the show.
Gotcha.
How you doing, Mike? Good to hear from you.
You know what? I am doing okay. It feels like it's been forever since we've had the opportunity to do another one of these, and I'm glad that you're sounding a little better. I know folks got to enjoy some husky Minnesotan dulcet tones there in our last episode, but
I do miss that.
I do. What I do not miss is editing out all the sniffies, but that's all right. That's all right.
I'll put a couple in for you. Don't worry.
Terrific. I am looking forward to that. But no, so we have a very special episode today, and if you're looking at your Two Mikes Two Furious podcast feeds, you're going to say, well, wait a sec. Didn't you guys already do Along Came a Spider? What is going on here? Why do they just like that episode that much? Well, yes, I do like that episode that much, which we're going to get into in a few. But we wanted to take the opportunity to canonize this telling of Two Mikes Two Furious in this particular episode. But we wanted to, rather than just having the same conversation twice 6 months apart, which is delightful, and I'm sure if you listen to both episodes back to back, you'll probably find some fascinating insights there. But we wanted to do something a little different, and I think this was one of our very first ideas when we were talking about the trajectory of the show and what we were going to do with it and the sequence of it. And for this, knowing that we were going to do Along Came a Spider a second time, we wanted to do it very differently. So I think, Michael Andrews, this was your idea. I'm just like, yeah, that's awesome. I co-sign. I will gladly co-sign this brave legislation, Senator. Please sell me your literature. Sign me up for your newsletter. But no, we had the idea of bringing in a guest and bringing in a very good friend of ours. And as we will discuss, which may not have been apparent to her at the time, a very specific reason why we thought this episode would be a really good fit. So we invited a very special guest to join us, and joining us right now for the very first time on Two Mikes Two Furious, it is the internet's #1 Elita-1 Stan. It's Lita.
Hey, hello. Thanks for having me. Excited to make Two Mikes Two Furious podcast debut history right here.
Yeah.
I love it.
Official third mic. I love it.
Official third mic.
Mike 3. I gotta do Mike Peter 3. It's my favorite.
because as folks have come to know, when you join Two Mikes Two Furious, you are Mike. You are Mike. So from this point
We
forward,
are Mike.
yes, we are Mike.
Too powerful. Too powerful.
It's too much. It's too furious, if you will.
One could say. Yeah.
Exactly. So today we are going to be talking about Transformers Animated Episode 9, Along Came a Spider, again, originally airing on February 16th, 2008, and written by Marty Eisenberg. But before we get into the discussion of the episode, Lita, every podcast is somebody's first podcast, and there's a new audience here that might be meeting you for the first time. I gave you a little bit of a softball to indicate your Transformers fandom claim to fame. You are the Elita, Elita Prime, as it were. But for folks that might be just meeting you for the first time, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? And then from there, let's kind of talk about what your connection or perhaps not connection is with Transformers Animated. But first, let's do a quick get to know you sesh.
Perfect. Oh, I mean, how much time do you have? I'm so vain. I could talk about myself for hours, but
45
anyways,
seconds.
to keep it brief here, as said, my name is Lita. That's how I go by in the fandom, and it was coined because when I first got into the fandom, I really clung to Elita-1 as a character. She was my favorite when I first joined the fandom and kind of built my legacy around her. I was on the scene for Tumblr RP, and I had a very popular RP blog for Elita-1, particularly Transformers Prime. Since then, I've kind of branched out doing fan fiction writing, and now I'm just kind of a general menace on Twitter. And at TF Cons, if you've ever been to TF Con, you see someone walking around in all pink with the pink robot leggings. That is me. So all the Elita-1 merch is bought by me, and just basically her mouthpiece. And so you can understandably get a sense for why the 2020s maybe haven't been as bad for me as it has for other people, because we're in a Elita-1 renaissance as it is. So
Yeah, truly.
I've been, like the 2020s have had 99 or more than 99 problems, but Elita ain't one. So
Yes.
so, living my truth. But yeah, so general troll, Elita-1 Stan, that's pretty much it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I love it.
I didn't know that you were kind of got your start with the Elita-1 Transformers Prime version too. That's really cool because
and it's funny because it's like I knew she was in G1 because it was like I went back and was rewatching the G1 episodes and was like, oh, who's this? Oh, cool. She's like second in command. She's like Optimus is like right hand, and like Wonder Woman. Love this. And then sadly was in nothing else. So I was like, well, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So that's what I did.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Transformers Prime. My secret goal with this podcast is so that we can have a spin-off podcast where Mike Seibert and I talk about Transformers Prime. So like that's the next Mike, plug your ears, but that's the next secret evolution of this show, in my opinion.
Dude, invite me back whenever you want. That is my bread and butter gateway drug.
Oh, so good.
I could talk about that forever.
But sorry, we're talking about Transformers Animated. Mike, earmuffs, you can take them off. We're back. We're back to the show.
Cone of silence.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm back. Very good.
I'll let you know when we get to the Dark of the Moon stuff. We can earmuff up then.
Oh, God.
He really wants us to cover that movie, and I don't know.
Understandably, because it's the best one. So
Yes, truly.
So with speaking of Transformers Animated, I've mentioned, the mission of this podcast is I've never sat down and watched TFA before, and it was the one piece of media that all of my friends said, one, were surprised that it was such a blind spot because it seems like there's so much material, quote unquote, for me. So Michael Andrews, being the serial rewatcher, is like, you know what? Let's take this journey together. And so that's kind of been our perspective. Like, he's the wise old sage and I'm the youngling Padawan here. I'm curious, though, for as much of a super fan as you are of Transformers Prime and other iterations of the Transformers, what is your relationship to Transformers Animated?
So very simply, non-existent. I too have among my other list of egregious sins against the fandom, have never watched Transformers Animated in my life. And this episode was the first and only episode I've ever watched of Transformers Animated. So everyone who gets on my ass about not having watched Beast Wars, not having read the God tier comics, add this to my list of things I must atone for.
Ooh. Sorry, I just flipped my desk over, but I'm back.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I know. I'm just really setting out to become pariah at this point.
I think actually you were doing it for the sake of this show. You knew we'd have a show like this where you need to watch it fresh for the first time, and luckily you saved it for us. So I appreciate it.
There you go. I was lying previously. That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Turns out she had seen the entire series already, but then for friendship, went to like Total Recall and got like that mind wipe stuff.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
And it's just
a neuralizer from Men in Black, if you will.
Oh man. So as I said, we are talking about Transformers Animated Season 1, Episode 9, Along Came a Spider, which, as I mentioned, aired on February 16th, 2008, and was written by Marty Eisenberg. And I wanted to come back to that date because our previous episode, Nanosec, was in late January. Michael Andrews, this episode aired 3 weeks later after Nanosec. And
oh, wow.
I don't know if there's any specific reason. Maybe it was like winter hiatus or whatever, but going through these episodes sequentially, I did find it fascinating that some of these have gaps, or that there's like gaps in time.
Yeah, I have no idea what that would be. And it's interesting because it's a Halloween episode, or maybe they were trying to decide if we should like move it to Halloween time or something. But it also, I was looking at the air date of February 16th, and it also kind of works as like a Valentine's episode, because there is sort of a spoiler alert. There's a little bit of a romance to it. It's this one. So maybe that was part of it. Maybe that was to kind of tie it in and make sort of a Valentine's special.
I'm also just given current climate in Hollywood. This would have been around the same time as the previous writer's strike, I believe, as well, 2007, 2008. So I wonder if that also had, any significance. Like maybe the episodes were just kind of late getting out of the gate in terms of like writing, production, stuff like that as well. But that's could purely be conjecture, but that's just my immediate thought.
Yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense because, again, Marty Eisenberg wrote this one, and we've only seen him write like the pilot episode that they shoved in as episode 8, and then this one, him getting the helm. So I could see that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating chronology, and it's interesting. And I don't want to steer too deep into a tangent, but it is interesting how things go in cycles, how things are cyclical. So currently, as of this recording, the current writer's strike has been going on for a week, possibly 2. There's rumblings of other unions joining the fight, and it'll be interesting to see how that happens. But like, I think forget the last time that there was a writer's strike and really the ramifications for Hollywood productions. It's like, anybody remember season 2 of Heroes? Anybody remember season 2 of Friday Night Lights? Anybody remember a movie called, I don't know, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen? That was... Yeah. It was written.
That was a masterpiece. Don't you dare come after it.
How dare you?
Nothing wrong with it at all.
Yeah.
Better than Dark of the Moon, I would say, personally.
Sure. So
Hot take.
So there's all kinds of like children of the writer's strike. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward in our current time. But it is interesting, a footnote for the release of this episode. And Lita, I want to ask you, I probably should have asked a moment ago before we kind of went in head first, but like when we extended the invitation to you to come on this episode, did you have any inclination or indication of why? Well, they want me on a Halloween episode? That's weird.
So I, being Elita-1's number one simp, I do know what this episode is. I know that she massive quotations, is in Transformers Animated in some capacity. And, obviously just through osmosis of fandom, I've seen screen caps. I kind of know what's going on. So it's not completely blind. It's something where it's like I was aware of it. I did a little bit of TF wikiing way back in the day just because I was like, oh, like, what is this? But didn't really do a deep dive into it. Never watched or brought myself to watch the episode. But I do have a general sense. And as soon as I got the invite, I was like, it's the Elita-1 time. Let's go. Let's do this. Like, I'm about to eviscerate this thing. Like,
we need the foremost authority. That's what I said to Mike. I said, I'll only do this if we get the number one.
I'm always here to talk Elita-1 and not Elita-1 because opinions, they'll come later.
Perfect. I love
Lots to talk about.
I promised this would be a different episode than the last time we discussed it. And I don't think the audience is going to be disappointed. For me, this was fascinating revisiting this episode because, like you, Lita, when I watched it last October for Halloween time, it was my first foray into TFA as well. So you and I kind of had like a weirdly similar experience in that, like, it was the first episode of Transformers Animated I had seen, and I was a blank slate. I didn't even know the things that you did going in, like the cultural osmosis stuff. I knew it was a Black Arachnia episode, and I knew it was a Halloween episode, but that was it. So it's like, as things unfolded, I was like, oh, holy heck, what is happening here? But also knowing that it was like episode 9, I had certain preconceived notions of what was in those previous 8 episodes, because I really had no idea. But now watching it again in sequence, it's even more fascinating to me because the thing that I've discovered going through Transformers Animated sequentially is it really is a slow burn in terms of like gradually introducing characters and concepts. I guess I had assumed the first time through that it was, the Decepticons are established. They're everywhere. They're probably fighting over power plants every week or something like that, or going after energon cubes or whatever the MacGuffin of the week is. And so far in my viewing and our rewatch, that has not been the case at all. It's been steeped in origin story world building stuff, and I find it incredibly fascinating the patience and time that a children's cartoon takes to do so much world building. Like, we're 9 episodes in, and this is the first time we've seen a Decepticon be a real menace and interacting with the Autobots since the pilot. And that's just wild to me. And on this watch through the second time, so this is the first time I've watched the episode in 6 months, since we did it the first time through. And like I said, I was just blown away by kind of like how little has happened. That's the wrong way.
But in a good way, right?
Yeah. No, I'm loving it. I didn't expect such a slow burn world building, because even stuff like Transformers Earthspark kind of gets going pretty quickly. Retroactively, folks have said like the first half of the first season is kind of slow, and retroactively I can kind of see that, but still, like, within, like, you got the pilot, then you got the first episode, and then you're off to the races, and then it's just kind of similar world building. Actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, I think that TFA and Earthspark kind of are 2 of a kind in terms of the world building and character spotlights. Every episode of TFA we've seen so far has been a character spotlight episode, which I found very intriguing.
Yeah, and it's like you kind of get a sense, like, again, I did not do any due diligence. I was like, I'm just going to watch this one episode and just, see what comes out of it with all my ignorance. But it does very much give off kind of this almost slice of life feel to it. What I thought was like most interesting was the robots are just walking around. There is no real disguise portion of it, which, is kind of like an interesting take. So I'm not sure if I'm sure it did come up like earlier in the season, like why there's no immediate need for them to be in hiding or whatever. But it is kind of one of those slice of lives that we get very much with Earthspark as well. And then with this episode, it did have like an interesting kind of like, flashback to like Cybertron or whatever was happening there. And then that kind of like clash of the Titans-esque feel to it as well. So it was like a really nice kind of like equal balance of like slices life and then, real world shit happening along with it, with that backdrop of Halloween for the extra horror.
So Michael Anders, this has, we kind of based the whole premise of the show centered around this episode. Like, I've told the story many times, but very briefly here, we did this as an episode of Mike Seibert Radio because we initially, when we wanted to do Two Mikes Too Furious, it was to time to coincide with the Halloween episode being at Halloween and not wanting to wait an entire year for that cycle to go again. It's like, let's just do it, test out our dynamic, see how we like it. And we discovered that we really hit it off and had such a great discussion. This is a terrific first episode for somebody to kind of test the waters for TFA. So Lita, I'm glad that you got the opportunity to have the same experience I did, in terms of just kind of getting thrown in the deep end and kind of trying to navigate the waters here. But Michael, you've said a number of times that like this is part of your regular Halloween time rotation. This is an episode that you like quite a lot, not just as a Transformers episode, but just in terms of like Halloween canon. This is the only Halloween episode of the Transformers across all of the series. So I guess my question before we get into the discussion of the plot, having had that discussion with me like 6 months ago, what's changed? How do you feel any different about it now that we've reset and are watching the episodes in sequence?
Yeah, it's interesting because, as far as like the serial rewatcher in me, I've serially rewatched this episode like way more than ever. Because like I said, for like 10 years, I've been watching this every Halloween. This was kind of my go-to, pop it on for Halloween. So this is not only the first time I've watched it like non-Halloween time of year, but also in the context of the show and like looking for different things. And now you have like context for the rest of the episode. So that was like a really fun, this was like watching it anew with new eyes for the first time again. So that was something, you always try to get that back with everything you love, right? Every movie, every book you read, you just want that again. So thanks, Mike, for delivering that to me somehow.
I think that's also a really good tell for good content. If you can go back and rewatch it, and no matter how many times you've watched it, you notice something new or you appreciate something new each time. I think that's one of those really great markers for how something can be truly like evergreen and why it ages so well, why it's still relevant, why people still like it, almost truly. 20 years later. What a horrifying thought.
Well, I mean, I claim that this is my favorite episode, and there's definitely like quote unquote cooler episodes of this show, but for me, this one is like one I can always go back to. I can tell anyone to watch it. And actually it might seem at first blush like you're like, oh, I'm missing a lot. I don't know who a lot of these characters are, but really this is an introduction for like two new characters of the show. We haven't seen, I think it's so cool what Mike was talking about, the slow burn. We haven't seen Sentinel Prime in an episode since like the first 5 minutes of the pilot episode. So they're bringing him back, and this answers a question that we've had since the very first scene of the show, is what is the backstory between Optimus and Sentinel that they have this kind of rivalry, and we're getting to see it play out here. So very exciting, very, very like patient storytelling here. Yeah,
it's definitely playing the long game, which I really like. And again, at risk of repeating myself, that's something that I didn't understand when I watched this episode 6 months ago. And now watching it again, on our animated journey, I have such a depth of appreciation for it, for the patience to really set the table. So that being said, let's get into the actual plot. We start at spooky, scary Halloween times, which I do think is an interesting contrast, because when we talked about the previous episode, Nanosec, it's like vague 4th of July with fireworks. So one of the tenets of discussion we have here is like, how much time has passed? How does time pass in New Detroit? It's always a question without answers, but I'll never not call it out. But yeah, so we start at what, like a county fair type of
pumpkin patch-esque thing.
Yeah, pumpkin patch for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, the first shot we get is like a zoomed in on a pumpkin, and I was like, that made me so happy. That was just like, okay, I know what we're getting into right off the bat.
Yeah, you're like, oh, baby, I remember when my parents would take me to these things. I know exactly where we are and what is going to happen here.
Well, it was almost the equivalent of like in the Halloween movie, the John Carpenter one, where like the opening sequence is like the jack-o'-lantern for like 20 minutes, I think it's on screen. But
something like that.
Just about.
Right. But for me, it was a throwback to that. I was like, okay, right off the bat, we know what we're getting into. Bring it on.
So we start with Sari Sumdak, our resident little troublemaker stinker character. And she is chatting with Bumblebee and Bulkhead and Optimus, and just kind of talking about the concept of Halloween and the ritual of choosing the right pumpkins. Like,
2 round, 2 orange, 2 normal. Yeah, that's the one. And they finally settle on the right one just in time for lovable doofus Bulkhead to squish it and completely ruin it.
Yeah, classic Bulkhead move there. Just has to wreck something. He's the Wreck-It Ralph of this show, and just giving us what we want, I guess.
Yeah, and I like this conversation between Sari and Optimus, where he's just like,
so the purpose of this Halloween is to disguise yourself in order to frighten strangers and extort sugar-infused nuggets.
while we're in disguise, and it kind of underscores something that Lita said a moment ago, because like in this world of TFA, the Autobots are out. In fact, actually, in this context, in this continuity, the Autobots are straight up superheroes. They're considered kind of aspirational figures and are known entities to the world. So they don't hide, and they're routinely participating in crime fighting. They're very much superheroes, which is kind of a really cool new take. But I do kind of like this little bit of legislation here, where there's almost this wink and a nod about Optimus talking about being in disguise, as they're pursuing the sugary nuggets.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, does this mean we're going to get like a funny little sequence of them in their car modes going and asking for candy, because technically they're in disguise, but thankfully we didn't do that.
Oh, that's good. That's just good writing. No, I think that's gold. I'm now I don't like this episode, actually, because that's not what now. You ruined it.
That'll be the next podcast. We'll do a rewriting session.
Yeah.
There we go.
Quick, where are my notes?
So they're having this conversation about choosing the right costume, the importance of choosing the right costume, which is obviously a ritual of Halloween. But Optimus is distracted by a large Black Widow spider, and this triggers what is the first of many flashbacks. And, coming off of the Thrill of the Hunt, the Ratchet episode, Rotten with Flashbacks, this has just as many. And the thing that really struck a chord with me this time around, now that I have context and I've seen the cadence of the flow of the show, it's like, how many of these Autobots have deep trauma, that have
deep hurt
It's like this
All of them.
This entire crew seems to be deeply traumatized.
Is it Transformers if they're not all emotionally damaged?
Right.
Like, truly.
Can't we just have one purely happy, joy-filled Transformer?
With the frizz? No way.
That's right. Mike, before we get into the flashback, I want to mention that we have I thought last episode's was a huge voice acting powerhouse. This one blows it out of the freaking water. So we haven't talked about Sorry, her voice, but she's voiced by Tara Strong, aka Tara Sharendoff, who's voiced everything ever. You definitely have a favorite Tara Strong voice. She's definitely done something you've known. She's been a voice actor since 1987. Her very first gig was a voice on the cartoon My Pet Monster. But since then, she's just been very active. She does video game voices. She is the voice of Ben 10, my Ben 10. She's the voice of Raven in Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go. Best character, by the way.
Hi, I'm Tara. You do my voice? You don't sound like me. I'm versatile.
I used to do this voice a lot. Yeah, I wish you'd seen it.
And Pretty Pegasus. Whoa.
Kylie Griffin from a little show called Extreme Ghostbusters, which was also way in my wheelhouse when I was a kid. And like Bumper Robinson, she also has a lot of live action stuff under her belt, including one of my favorite movies, but I guarantee no one's seen it, and you probably shouldn't see it, National Lampoon's Senior Trip, which was also the first movie for a young Jeremy Renner. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, interesting. Look at that little fun fact.
Yeah, so she's just the first of many big voices in this episode that I was surprised. So we're going to have to do a little conjecture there.
Yeah, absolutely. Lita, do you happen to have a favorite Tara Strong role?
I mean, Harley Quinn. Come on.
Welcome to Mr. J's Carnival. You must be 74 inches tall to ride. Guests with heart conditions, vertigo, or who are not trained in martial arts should not ride. Please keep arms and hands moving at all times. Park is not responsible for any damage, loss, or injury to the neck, back, face, ribs, skull, spleen, or other vital organs. Enjoy!
Yeah, great one.
Like, that is just like top tier. And actually, I would say that her Miss Minutes is the saving grace for Loki for me, because I did not enjoy anything about that show, but I did like her Miss Minutes. So
Miss Minutes was that. Great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tangentially speaking here, also wasn't a huge fan of Loki. So I'm glad to hear,
just once again, putting myself out there, painting myself as a target, did not like Loki. Come after me.
You will get mail. Knowing this show, you will get mail. So
it's true.
Well, it is what it is.
It is very.
I'll put it with all my other. What do you mean you haven't read More Than Meets the Eye? Like, how dare you? No, I'll put it in that pile.
the
along with all my letters.
Flowing, yes.
Yes, along with all yours.
It's very it's basic. I'm very much a basic bitch. I really like Tara Strong's take on Batgirl. Batgirl is one of my favorite characters, and I've always liked her take on it. It's not big or flashy or really anything, but I always thought it was just a really earnest performance that I've always really liked.
Well, I think that's one of the best things about her voice acting talent. It always comes off pretty effortless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some people have that style where they're definitely putting on a voice or they're really, really on. And some people are just sort of more conversational just to play off their own voice. And those are the ones that I kind of appreciate more. They're just a little more down to earth and realistic and add a little gravity to their characters.
And just talk about a chameleon. Like, just think of the diversity and range of the different vocal performances she's given us. I mean, she is without a doubt just a legend and a titan of the voiceover industry. Or voice actor industry, I should say. So it's really cool that she's a part of this alongside the great David Kaye and many others who, when I was peeping the cast list there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And one of the things we've discussed as we've gone on this TFA journey is it's a stacked cast. And this really feels like of its time time capsule-y. I don't know if you could get this same group of folks in the same cast at the same time
today. It makes it feel very special, especially with the rotating cast of guest stars as well. It's TFA feels very special in that, with guest stars of the week and things like that. But again, stacked voice cast.
Totally. All right. Well, thanks for going down that rabbit hole with me. It's about to happen again in about 3 seconds, but
I love a good rabbit hole. Let's do it.
Yeah. So as Mike was saying, we got Optimus seeing the spider, which triggers the flashback. And yeah, I had the same feeling as you, especially coming off of Thrill of the Hunt. I was like, here we go. Deep hurting. We're right back into it. Someone's going to get tortured a little bit. So we have Optimus and Elita-1, which is obviously why we have Lita here. They're on an alien planet and they come across a spider web, just like Optimus did in present day. And right away, we have to go into another big voice actor thing here, because as Elita-1, we have Cree Summer, who, if you don't know who that is, she's also the voice of everything. And she's actually been voicing things since 1983. She was Penny in Inspector Gadget, which is like one of my very first cartoons I ever watched. And I loved Penny. So that tracks. She was also Princess Nisa in the Ewoks animated series. She's been Dulcie the Dragon in Sonic the Hedgehog, and the good Sonic the Hedgehog, not the cheap Channel 9 Sonic the Hedgehog. She was Chloe on Sabrina the Animated Series. She was Valerie in Danny Phantom, which I love Danny Phantom. Danny Phantom's right up there with Ben 10 for me. So like that's in the same level. Yeah. And then her like biggest, in my opinion, role was Princess Kita in Atlantis, which is probably my number 2 favorite Disney movie of all time.
Yes. Can we get some snaps around for that? Man, people sleeping on Atlantis, the Lost Empire. I remember seeing that in theaters and forever being changed. One of the greatest things Disney animation came out with in that time period.
It's so
also slept
good.
on along with Treasure Planet, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, I'm huge Treasure Planet fan. Yeah, I was going to say that's probably my number 1, actually, but Atlantis is my number 2. Even though it's basically an animated version of Stargate, it's still super good.
Hey, it's still a great story, and Stargate is awesome in every form, so why not? Let's have one for the kiddies.
I
Get
love
them on
Stargate
early.
a lot, too.
Stargate holds a special spot in our family for sure.
Well, speaking of Stargate, Cree Summer is also the sister of Rainbow Franks, a former cast member of Stargate Atlantis, which is in turn obviously a spinoff of Stargate SG-1, on which Gary Chalk, Optimus Primal himself, was a semi-regular playing Colonel Chekhov. So,
oh my
the
God,
3 degrees of Transformers strikes again
in the Transformers continuum.
And I'll do you one better. This is a special one for the Mike Seibert stands out there. Cree Summer's father, Don Franks, was the first actor to play Boba Fett in the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special.
No.
You are alone?
I have 2 droids. We've come in search of a ship that crashed near here.
Maybe I can help you. I am Boba Fett. The ship you seek is nearby.
Yes.
Oh,
wow.
My God.
So Cree Summer's full name is Cree Summer Franks, and her father was Don Franks.
That's crazy.
And so it's like it was like so many convergence of so many different things. I had this tweet that I had found on IMDb that I want to run by you guys, because like it hit me funny when I first read it. But Cree Summer had this to say on her experience as a voice actor. Quote, "I was an only child for 10 years. I didn't start school until I was 8, but I didn't have TV for years. So I found all these voices when playing with my toys. They're really my toys' voices. Schizophrenia comes in handy." So that last line kind of made me mildly uncomfortable, but you know, it's a different time, and folks of a certain age have certain attitudes and mentality, but it is fascinating. We talk about, you know, a lot of these voice actors and how they have so many different disparate voices and characters in their head. So I thought it was interesting for Cree Summer to mention that so matter-of-factly
about how she comes up with all of these different things. She was also, because I'm just reading cast list, she was also Elmira on Tiny Toons and Hyena on Gargoyles. And of all things,
Gargoyles.
Yeah,
that's right.
And the weird thing also is, everybody's got like weird, obscure cast notes. She's the green M&M.
No,
are you serious?
The sexy one?
As in the sexy one. Yeah. Tucker Carlson's nemesis?
The one they took away from us?
Yes.
Bet you didn't think M&Ms were pushing intolerance, but they were. They've been changed. You're seeing the changes right now on your screen. The green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Now she's wearing sensible sneakers. Why the change? Well, according to M&M's, quote, "We all win when we see more women in leading roles. Because leading women do not wear sexy boots. Leading women wear frumpy shoes. The frumpier, the better. That's the rule."
Blood feud. That guy fucking sucks.
Jail immediately.
Yes. Yeah, we're I'll talk about this when we get to the end of the episode and we talk about like things that we have coming up, but the Tucker thing just kind of rattled something loose that, like, we're so pissed off with right-wing media, are we, that we're going to have a reunion of Mike and the Earth Sparkles, and we're going to talk about the other half of season 1 of Transformers Earthspark, including how conservative media is just assholes. And I think
we should just label it as fuck turfs, and that'll just be the episode title.
Ooh, there we go.
People know what they're getting into right away.
Mike and the Earth Sparkles, fuck turfs.
That's the episode title. I love it. It's like I think it's a weird cosmic kismet type of thing where it's like, I've been super busy, haven't had time. And I know General Techno has really been beaten down the door. It's like, come on, man, let's talk about the Earth Spark. And, but now, like, with Nightshade being so much in the news cycle, it's like, we can't not talk about them. And it's definitely a different thing for a different time, but we'll I want to hype that up when we get to the end of this episode. But yeah, Cree Summer, very prolific voice actor, and quite the stacked resume, and Lita being the number one Elita-1 Stan, where you've had different iterations of Elita-1, not speaking to the character, because I know you will have opinions, and you will have plenty of time and opportunity to air those opinions. I promise you. But like, just like right up top here, how do you feel about this this voice performance? How do you feel about this vocal take on Elita-1?
So it feels wrong to ever question a Titan like Cree Summers, but for me personally, I wasn't that on board with it. And I remember listening to like different clips and like seeing different videos and stuff again back in the day and being like, oh, I don't know if that really fits. And then watching it in the context, I was still kind of like, ooh, I don't know if this fits. Now, granted, when we get to the Black Arachnia portion, I thought her performance there was bang on. Like, that was like my everything. I loved it. But in terms of Elita-1, I wasn't quite buying it. And again, I have like more reasons for that, like down the road. But as like a first knee-jerk reaction, I was like, ooh, still not really, digging it, unfortunately. But Black Arachnia, love it. Yeah, couldn't get enough of it.
It definitely feels like she was cast first as Black Arachnia, because it's a Black Arachnia voice.
Yes.
Boom. Like, nailed it. Spot on. Good choice. But yeah, and then they're like, oh, you also have to play this flashback character, so.
Right, which is probably why it's like, well, thankfully it's a very short time that you'll be this character, so it's like I can forgive that. But again, I've now become such a glutton with the amount of Elita content I have at my fingers. It feels wrong of me to question and criticize, but I will. So
you're the elitist, if you will.
Oh my god.
Oh, there it is.
Elitist one.
That is that's going in the bio for sure.
Oh god, that sounds so right wing though. I want to be like, I'm not
the elitist 1%.
I am not elitist. I'm an elitist. Very different. we're not about that life.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
Had to do it. Couldn't help myself.
Absolutely.
Hilarious.
Well, and it's interesting. Like, so Lita, you had invoked the black arachnia of it all. And for us, we've only met black arachnia once before, and that's in the pilot. And even then, it's just really she's getting in a tiff with Blitzwing and Lugnut, and really there isn't a whole lot there. And then the character just kind of disappears for like a half dozen episodes. So having that in context, it was interesting to come back so many episodes later for this to be a origin story. But yeah, it is interesting to come back to these characters now. So we're still kind of in this first flashback, and basically the trio of Sentinel, Optimus, and Elita-1, they're in these caves. There's like a crashed Decepticon ship full of Enerjohnny goodness. that Sentinel
favorite line of the whole show right there. Enerjohnny goodness.
Is that an actual? What my ignorance is showing. Is that an actual line?
It's what he said. Yeah, it's not a thing, but he made it a thing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Enerjohnny goodness.
I got a good feeling about this. Any cycle now, we're going to be overflowing with rich, all-spark-infused Enerjohnny goodness.
And Elita just pops right off it. She's like,
"Did you really just say Enerjohnny goodness?"
Shh.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, totally calls him out on it too.
Yeah.
Which I have to record scratch the episode one more time, because now we need to talk about Sentinel Prime. Not only because he is my favorite character in this whole show, believe it or not, but I learned a lot about him from this episode that I didn't know before. So I knew he was designed based on the Tick, but I didn't know it was the same voice actor as the Tick animated series, which is Townsend Coleman. I think that's so cool that they got him to actually do it.
Yes, Destiny has her hand on my back, and she's pushing face to face with the legendary Terror.
He's also a huge prolific voice actor, because he's been voicing characters since 1985. And this is where my mind was totally blown, because he was the voice of Michelangelo from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. This is the voice of my childhood. This is who I based my whole persona around.
What?
And I didn't know this until I just found this out.
Oh, tubuloso, dudes! Check this out! Big Pizza Bake-Off! Free samples and deluxe pizza prizes!
Pizza Tossin' Mike himself is Sentinel Prime?
Yeah. So that, like...
What an upgrade! We love that for him!
Yeah, so I mean, I wrote down this literally the most influential character from my childhood. I have, Michelangelo action figures, my love of pizza. I mean, it all comes from this.
Your name.
Yeah, exactly. I had to retroactively get my parents to change it to Mikey based
Worth
on...
it.
No, but that's not true. But I wanted to mention one thing that he did voice Michelangelo in outside of the Michelangelo cartoon. I don't know if anyone remembers this or has heard of it, but there was something called Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. Does anyone remember what this is? It was basically like Live Aid for cartoon characters. It was like a special commission of the Reagan administration during like the drug Just Say No time.
Say no to drugs thing, yeah.
Yeah. So they got all these cartoon characters in the same episode to like come to life Toy Story style and help this kid not start using drugs. So Mikey was the voice of Mikey in that, or Townsend Coleman. And then there was also like Elf and Garfield and Winnie the Pooh, and they had all the voice actors from that show like come and do this show. It was huge at the time. And even like President Reagan was on the show like talking about drug problems. So
I've only ever seen it as like, I've seen it as a clip on like YouTube or like in GIFs and stuff like that. I've never actually seen the episode, but that is so cool.
But I mean, for the time, it was almost like the Avengers, right? Because all these properties had to come together. I mean, remember when the Avengers, they're like, this will never happen because you have to get the rights to like all these things, and then it happened. That's what it was like. It was like all these, Daffy Duck's not in the same studio as Winnie the Pooh as is the Muppets. I mean, It's fascinating.
God, I don't even want to think about all the copyright that they had to go through.
Yeah, you'd know.
Oh my God, no, kill me.
Right. So now we've finally gotten through the voice acting work, but I just think this is like a triple threat as far as voice actors. We had to mention that.
Absolutely, and it's almost accidentally a Sentinel spotlight as well as a Black Arachnia origin. So yeah, this. In 23 minutes, they do a lot of heavy lifting, and that's the thing that I still admire so much about TFA and specifically Marty Eisenberg's writing, is that he crams a lot into a short amount of time. It's like, this looking at our current trajectory, this episode is going to be well over 2 hours, probably our longest episode to date. But I think because there's so much to unpack, and the episode and the story is so dense with so much going on that there's just so much to go through. But it feels so economical that it's breezy. It goes at a good clip, and again, it's only 23 minutes. I'm blown away by how plot dense these episodes can be, where season 3 G1 episodes, it's like, yeah, they tap out at 19 minutes, and then it's like the Quintessons are a vile race of always threatening the Transformers. Yeah.
It's like all Star Wars scroll, like getting you up to speed. There's not like actual storytelling going.
Yeah. Well, it's incredibly because you can tell that like everything that's included is so deliberate, and like you said, Mike, like incredibly economical and like almost militant with like this happens because of this, and has that domino effect without it being too overwhelming for a child to understand and to follow, and never sacrificing like a good pace. Like I love world building. I love when things are just chock full of like, those little nuggets of information that make the world expansive. You get character expansion as well because of it. But if it's too overwhelming and if there's too much, you're really sacrificing on like, plot, pace, like having those different cadences for emotion and things like that as well. So he's really done this incredible marriage of, all of those components into something bite-sized and tangible in 23 minutes, which is nothing short of incredible, especially, and I'm sure, Michael as well, being writers, where it's like, I just have pages and pages. I will just go on for fucking ever. I don't know when to stop. You know what I mean?
I just need to beat this point home over 200 pages. Is not so much to ask.
Yeah, well, yeah. And it's like, texting me is the worst because it's like, I give you a novel in return. It's like, okay, edit yourself, Lita. So I admire anyone who can, get their point across, like not in a pithy way, but in a, deliberate and focused way.
Concise,
yes.
Perhaps. Well, I'm one to talk. Brevity is not my first best strength. So, as you all well know.
But on the other hand, Marty Eisenberg, very, very good at it. Just in this short little back and forth with the trio, we learn 3 big things. We learn organic planets are off limit for Autobots, so they're there sort of illegally. They're also there to see a rumored Decepticon warship, so we kind of get a time placement of like, the Decepticon war's over, but people haven't totally forgotten about them. And it kind of goes back to Optimus. We relearn that he's, the geek of the group. He's straight edge, and he's the history buff. He's filling that role of like, I'm here for the history lesson. Sentinel might be here for treasure, but I just want to see a little bit of history, and I'm willing to break the rules, bend the rules to do it.
Yeah. And Elita-1 is kind of in the middle, right? Because she also kind of sees the historical value, but she's also kind of like reluctantly in Sentinel's camp. And I kind of wanted to talk about this new dynamic, because traditionally Elita-1 is for all intents and purposes paired with Optimus, because that goes back to their origin, their tied together origin story in War Dawn from Generation 1, where he used to be a dock worker named Orion Pax with his girlfriend Ariel, and they get smoked by Decepticons, rebuilt by Alpha Trion into Optimus Prime and Elita-1 respectively. And
while, we discussed previously that Elita-1 isn't really a presence in G1, which is a damn shame, because that concept of that guerrilla group on Cybertron pestering Shockwave all the time.
Female Autobots. I thought they were extinct.
Really feels like that's just rich for more story. And I wish we would have caught back up with those folks after the movie, after season 3, just to kind of see like reconnecting with a two-front war. It's like, well, you guys have both been having Earth adventures, and now we had the threat of Unicron, and now we're all kind of back under the same roof. How do those groups reconcile? So yeah, it's kind of missed opportunities.
Massive missed opportunity, but personal bias aside.
Well, and you could also argue, not to take it to a darker place, but since any time that characters don't show up in season 3, it stands to reason that they probably could be dead. Did they get smashed by Unicron? Did Shockwave get the drop on them at some point? Maybe there
Did they just run out of Energon, like we saw with the War for Cybertron series? Like, there's
Oh,
when
yeah.
in doubt, just when in doubt, just assume they've been fridged.
Yeah, I was gonna say literally. Oh, Lita, I can't. I can't relitigate that. I mean, like, there's very little of this entertainment that makes me truly angry. But like when spoilers for War for Cybertron Kingdom on Netflix, but like when you discover that Elita-1 has been literally, not figuratively, not implied, but literally fridged, which for every podcast is somebody's first podcast, quote unquote, fridging is a trope where a female character is either killed or otherwise disabled or depowered for the express purpose of furthering the male character's storyline, robbing them of any kind of agency. And really the phrase came from a issue of the Green Lantern comic book where the Green Lantern's girlfriend gets murdered and stuffed in a refrigerator for him to discover later. It was coined by writer Gail Simone, called it Women in Refrigerators. So, and now kind of, we just call it fridging for short, as just kind of shorthand. But like, so when I saw Elita-1 literally dead, frozen in ice, I was just like, I got up and yelled. I was like, God damn it. I was so mad.
All the rage quit was real.
Yeah, it was, man. So anyway,
back to the first flashback of 4.
We're 5 minutes into this episode.
Yeah.
I would like to say it picks up as we go, but I promise you it doesn't. But I'm sorry, Michael Andrews. I didn't mean to stomp on your toes here, but I did want to talk for a sec about the dynamic between Elita, Optimus, and Sentinel, because it is very different than what we've seen before. It seems to me that she's with Sentinel, not so much with Optimus. Am I correct in interpreting it that way?
That's how I kind of took it as. I was kind of like, okay, Sentinel and Elita are kind of like the two pair here, and Optimus feels almost kind of like a third wheel, which I think is kind of different and like unique as well, because, well, Optimus is the main character. He's the guy. He's Optimus Prime. And yet he's like kind of third wheeling with his two friends here who seem to have more of a understanding of each other, more of that same kind of rapport. And he's just kind of, tagging along. It was like it's an interesting dynamic to think about, and one that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Ever really.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about like the dynamic in general kind of being really restrained for the time period of this animated series, because it seems like to me it should almost be, like she has to pick. Like we should be getting a love triangle right off the bat. Like she should say something about easy Optimus, or I'm not going to pick you. Like I feel like every other cartoon at this time was sort of doing that thing. And this is different. This seems like more of, like a modern adult relationship, they are all friends, but maybe something's burgeoning between her and Sentinel. Like that's really interesting. And they don't overtly have to say any of it. We just kind of get it right off the bat. That's taking a lot of like, liberties or like putting a lot on the viewer, especially for a kid's show.
It's also, again, too, what I liked is, the female character doesn't exist sole purpose for relationship fodder, right? It's like she kind of, again, even though it's short-lived, she has this almost kind of agency where it's like, okay, we can take this as being like purely platonic with like these two other people. If you want to read into it, which I'm Oplita trash, so of course I do. But it's like, if you want to read into it, if you want to project certain things onto it, you can. But for these express purposes, what we have seen in canon, to me, it's coded as a platonic friendship with like, three pals. And I have friendships like that as well. So again, it's one of those smart moves and almost one of those daring moves as well to not relegate female character as sole love interest or sole purpose of love interest. But there's other things that, we're kind of fumbled, and we'll get to it later.
I was just thinking the three of us are almost that dynamic. That's actually,
yes.
I'm like the Sentinel. Can I be the Sentinel?
Sure.
So clearly I'm Optimus Prime. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no one else you could be.
Oh shit, do I turn into a giant spider? God damn it. Which is fine. I could be a sultry spider.
Second time this week.
Yeah.
Come closer. I want to tell you something. Give me your powers. It's like, yeah. Femme Fatale, Mike Seibert. Yes, there it is.
There we go. Finally. But yeah, so moving on with this flashback here. So the three buddies are all chatting.
We're still in the first flashback. I'm sorry. Please continue.
There's a lot to say about this episode. A lot packed in.
That's right. It's it's a world building. It's an Eisenberg special. Yeah. But the next thing they know, they fall through a sinkhole deep into the planet, and this is where they hear the thing that scares me the most to this day. They hear the Predator sound, in my opinion. There's like the clicking sort of alien Predator sound. Something's not good. And I will say that sound terrifies me to this day. Yeah. It's the sound I want to hear least when I'm outside. If I hear anything like a woodpecker and sounds a little like the Predator sound, I'm back inside. So that to me scared me even as an adult watching this show.
Oh yeah, it sucks because not that it sucks, but it's like, again, being prolific and things that stay with you. And again, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, I love that you say Predator sound because that's exactly what I thought when I was watching this episode. Then dumbass me gets up in the morning, goes hiking in the middle of like freaking canyons and forests, and I'm just like,
nope.
I would hear like little noises. I'm just like, cut it short this morning because I was like paranoid.
Looking in the trees to see if there's like weird movements or there are like weird bending.
Right, you're looking for the shifting, the prisming.
At first, it's just like mountain lions that I would be like, scared, or like being murdered by a guy out in the middle of nowhere. But now it's like, no, it's the Predator. Yeah. It's coming for me.
Does anyone
or those spiders?
Because
robot spiders.
Yeah. Does anyone know? And Mike, I'm looking at you specifically. Yeah. Does anyone know like where the Predator sound came from, or like what that is?
Peter Cullen.
What?
Peter Cullen is the one who, fun fact, he created the Predator noise. And actually, I believe if I'm thinking back to TFCon 2015, he mentioned it during his panel that there is like these different types of crabs or something that he saw on the beach, and they were in the sun and they were making this kind of this crackling noise. And so when he was called on to come in and do kind of like the monster voice work for Predator, he was thinking about how the mouth was kind of like crabbish and like started doing like the like I can't do it, but
man.
So that was kind of the story. So again, 2 degrees of Transformers. It is Optimus Prime as the Predator.
I swear that's not a bit. I did not know that bit of information. That is just straight up me learning something today years old.
That's one of my little fun facts for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Well, and he, I mean, Lita already said it, but to underscore it further, he is the monster voice in the Predator. So it's like when he's talking, as it were, to Arnold at the end of the movie. That's all Peter Cullen. Like the laugh and all that's Peter Cullen.
Oh wow! And he was the voice of Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh was in Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. Oh my God.
Oh my, I'm not kidding when I say 2 degrees of Transformer. Like it's we are more connected than Kevin Bacon at this point. Like, everything links back to us.
Kevin who, man?
Yeah, right.
So we're back to the present, just to get us back on track. We're back to the present day, and Bulkhead spooks Optimus back to reality with a classic boo. You gotta love the good Halloween boo in there.
Yes.
And then we get to see his ghost costume, which I think is hilarious, and it kind of sucks because it is a sheet, but it can only fit on his head, and he thinks that's working. It's passing as a ghost, but he needs some work.
Well, and jumping over the uncomfortableness of somebody wearing a white sheet over only their head. No, he's doing Hooded Cobra Commander. It's like that. That's what it is, and he mixed it with off colors, and he bought a Hooded Cobra Commander costume off of Wish, and when he washed it, all the color drained out of it, and now it's white.
What I ordered, what I got.
Yes, exactly. But I love the subtlety of just the boo, and I we'll see this as we go in and out of the flashbacks, the different triggers that they use to go in and out. It's very clever. And very, very funny. Optimus says something to the effect of like, oh, well, it's just a ghost from the past, making him jumpy. And then he kind of slinks off here. But before we get any further, I wanted to talk about Bumblebee here. He is, he's dressed up as Count Von Count. He's got the cape, he's got the fangs, but the thing I did not realize until we went through this TFA journey, and especially our previous episode on Nanosec where we talked about Bumblebee's voice actor, Bumper Robinson, I didn't realize that he was also the voice of Blitzwing. So when he's doing like this Count Dracula voice, he's just doing the Blitzwing voice, which just like I was watching it last night and I just lost my mind. I was like, I wrote this down in all caps. I'm like, B is doing Blitzwing. Which there's fodder for you shippers out there, but yeah, no, I just thought it was so funny. It's like,
welcome, I am Count Dracula. I want to drink your motor oil.
and it just cracks me up. That again, it's Bumper Robinson as Bumblebee just doing a version of the Blitzwing voice, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I guess I kind of go into like what was going through his head that made him pick Dracula. Like that was just kind of an interesting. I mean, I know it's a very classic movie monster, but like. Good choice. I just kind of want to know why. Now that I've seen this episode a billion times, it's like I want to dig into the psychology of why Bumblebee picked Dracula. But
I mean, who doesn't want to be a menace with their friends with the cool fangs and the cape that you can just dramatically thrash about? Like, I know that's why I would.
It's the cape that actually makes sense to me. Yeah,
it's either that or Frankenstein, honestly.
Right.
In terms of the classics.
I'll be honest. I really want to get Dracula's, the mind wipe retool as Dracula.
Yeah.
I hear the figure is just fine. I don't really have any tether to Dracula or mind wipe, but I want the cape so that I can put it on my Bumblebee figure.
Yeah.
That's
customization.
I need to do that.
I was going to say, like, tangentially, while we're on the topic of Halloween costumes, there's this one shot where and I can't remember if it's before this scene or after, so I apologize if I'm jumping ahead, but you see the kids like trick-or-treating or out in their costumes. One of them is just straight up like Soviet Union. I was like, this is very dated to the times, is it not? We have a little comrade on the streets. Like, oh my God.
Let's hope it's a costume.
Yeah.
I was going to say though, let's crack this wide open. That is not the first time we've seen this kid. We saw him in Home is Where the Spark Is. He's in the park where Prowl is like watching the cat stalk the bird, and he's just there in this like goddamn Bernie Sanders
playing with like a hammer and a scythe. Like what? I'm so confused.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
Well, this tracks. He was watching a cat kill a bird, and he's taking some sort of unusual enjoyment from it. So,
oh my,
it fits.
They're Russian.
So weird.
I really hope, like, again, I know nothing of this series, but I hope this kid just blows it wide open and he's secretly like this Russian sleeper agent and he's like watching.
No.
They say one word and he kills. Yeah.
Do svidaniya. That means goodbye.
Oh my God.
Again, write that down for when we rewrite this series.
Yeah.
That's going to be a plot point. Russian kid, sleeper cell agent.
Click, clack.
So y'all talking about those costumes, but I want to talk about Bulkhead's new and improved ghost costume, because I think we're overlooking what is actually the scariest costume in this episode. Because just from its, I mean, it's a fumigation tent, that he turned into a ghost, but it's like this weird carnival, Beetlejuicean sort of. Yes. It's got the actual fumes. Tent. It's got bugs falling out of it.
Yeah.
It's
oh my
scary.
God. Gross. And I love that they kind of went Pigpen with it, where it's like the fumes just continue to waft like throughout. I'm like, so Sari's gonna die, right? Like, is no one talking about how he's legitimately poisoning everyone in New Detroit like, with every step he takes? Yes. My brother in Christ, that's why the tents exist. Like, contain it.
I can't wait. So Michael Andrews, the name is eluding me. The news guy that we talked about previously.
Oh, Lester Black.
Lester Black. No relation to Prometheus Black. Got it. But anyway, so I'm waiting for like a Lester Black TV thing, like, were you or a loved one exposed to the fumigation? Where were you on Halloween night of 2157 with the giant robot walking around looking like Pigpen? And it's not just the fumigation. It's also like cockroaches. It's like an endless supply of cockroaches that just keep falling out of this cartoonishly large.
You may be entitled to compensation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
But yeah, I also like how Bulkhead is just so agreeable here, because like, sorry, in between coughing and wheezing because she's being actually poisoned by her friends here.
Getting fucking cancer.
Yeah, exactly. We shouldn't be laughing that hard at that because, but anyway, no, it's like,
cancer isn't funny.
That little girl's got to get cancer. Well, and that's the least of her problems in this particular episode. Oh boy, I have thoughts later, but it's interesting because she's like, well, where did you get that sheet? Well, I just grabbed it. He's like, and she's like, well, that's not a sheet. That's a fumigation tent. And Bulkhead going full Patrick here is just like, oh, wait, what's a fumigation tent? It's like he goes along with it and then realizes, oh, wait a sec, what?
I wish he would have clapped back and like, why are you guys so mean to me? Like, you complain about my first ghost costume. Now this one's not good enough.
Like, jeez. I'm sorry, but Party City was like out of everything on Halloween night. Spirit Halloween has nothing. Like, I had to make do, okay?
Yeah, the XL to the power of 9 ghost costume was all sold out.
Yeah, it's like we have very limited options onto what I can do here. So I appreciate. You know what? Everyone had a homemade costume at one point.
Yes.
I respect it. Now, then again, none of us used a fumigation tent with like a billion dead cockroaches, but hey, to each their own. Who knows?
Horrifying. Will haunt my dreams. And yet I also want it to be a cosplay.
Fumigation not included.
It's a low-key terrifying episode. This is like actual nightmare fuel. It's like, we've talked about deep trauma and deep hurting in other episodes, but yeah, this is just straight up nightmare fuel. And with Bulkhead here, I know you said we should get clapback here, but he's gonna get the last laugh. They all got cancer, so it's fine. It's fine. He gets the last laugh.
So anyway,
so we're back at the Autobot base, right?
Yeah, well, so they've shown off their costume. Sari's not ready to reveal her costume quite yet,
Right.
but she does. This is important to note. She does use her key, drink, to swing a fake spider in front of Optimus. Once again, pranking him with her key. I think this moment's cute, and it's also Lita. This happens a lot. She abuses her power, so this is like our drinking game on the show. Whenever Sari misabuses her key power, but Mike, as we've been talking about, it's interesting the key lets her do this, right?
Yes.
Because now we know the key's working through action and inaction, and it's making conscious choices. You can't just do whatever you want with it. So, but it let her do this, and I can't help but think it's tied to this traumatic backstory that Optimus has.
Absolutely. Well, and I think also the other thing to underscore here is so Optimus snaps into his trauma very quickly, instinctively whips out the axe like a switchblade and makes short work of this, to where it's does he have some unresolved trauma there? Because that's kind of like a disproportionately violent response. His instinct is to call the axe and to bring the hammer down on that. And it's interesting because there's a little bit of dialogue here between Optimus and Sari, where she's like, "Oh, hey man, I was just funning with you," and he's like,
"Somehow I think when the Allspark powered your key, it had something more in mind than Halloween fun. You really shouldn't use it unless it's absolutely necessary."
And I think this is kind of one of our first acknowledgments of this, where Optimus is aware that she has the key, aware that she's using it and how she's using it. And he even calls out here, man, that might not be such a great use of the key. And speaking of clapbacks, Sari immediately comes back and says,
"Hello, how necessary was it to use your axe on a fake spider?"
And as someone who has been with this iteration of Optimus for 9 episodes, I now have a disproportionate amount of affection for Optimus Prime's axe. I think that's is almost of an iconic weapon as his ion blaster. And you can't change my mind because it goes all throughout canon. But I wrote in my notes, "Sari's slander of the axe will not stand!" Exclamation point.
Justice for the axe.
Yeah, because she's she's in the wrong here, but she finds a way to turn it back on him and flips him some shit here.
But it's also interesting because from her, sorry to cut you off, but it's from her point of view, she's absolutely right. He completely eviscerates a Halloween decoration with a show of force that was beyond what would be considered a normal fright or scare, right? So I do it's an interesting clapback, but it's one where it's both sides have a point here. You both are correct.
Right. Well, and
sadly.
And Mike, you were asking me what did you find different watching it this time versus all the other time? And since we've been talking about what we know about the key and how the key works in mysterious ways, when Optimus said that line of somehow I don't think that's what the Allspark had in mind, I was like, how dare you? How dare you deign to know what this incarnation of your God does or does not do?
Yeah,
so I did have that sort of moment of don't tell her what it does and does. This thing is beyond all of our understanding.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the Allspark imprinted on Optimus. It imprinted on Sari.
Yeah.
Sari is the one that has the connection to the Allspark, not Optimus. I mean, sure, he was around when he kind of got blowed up when it opened, but still, I agree with you, Michael Andrews. I don't think he has that right. And the thing that's interesting here is the recontextualization of what it means to be Prime. Optimus Prime is not quite the same guy that he is in traditional Transformers continuity. Thus far, from what I've seen, I don't know if the Matrix is even a concept here in TFA, but I know that from what I've seen in these 9 episodes, Optimus doesn't have it. He's just a dude. And in fact, actually kind of like a screw up and kind of a washout, which we kind of see some in this episode here. But he's not the
Jesus-like figure doing DoorDash there, as he's not Space Jesus like he is in more traditional Transformers continuity. So it's interesting to see him kind of stick his neck out here like this.
Yeah.
Right. In this show, Prime is just a rank, like a military rank. That's why we also have Sentinel Prime existing at the same time. And it's not even the highest rank. Actually, in this world, the highest rank, what would be the Prime in other continuities, is Magnus. Ultra Magnus is sitting at the top of the Pantheon, which I love. Bring it on. So from this we get the next flashback. We're back to the past. The Autobots are patrolling the tunnels that they discovered through the sinkhole, and they got their cool lights. That's what I wrote down in all caps. Was they have those cool like shoulder lights.
Yeah, the
I was
shoulder
really
lights. Digging those. Very asymmetrical too. You know, kind of like the G-axis figure. You know, where it's just like one thing on one shoulder. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's so cool. And Sentinel wants to find the Decepticon ship for the Energon. Mike, this is where he specifically says the Energon-y goodness line.
Energon-y goodness.
And I like that line. I wanted to mention, now that we've established it, it's a very Tick-esque line. Like this is straight up the Tick thing to say. And then we start getting these like classic horror moments, right? We're down in this dark cave. We have sounds in the dark. There's a creature scuttling by in the background. It's very like, Alien or something. Just we don't see the monster right away, but then you do see the monster, and I wrote down shit, it's spiders, because I should have known by now, but now it's real, right? Like now it's not just a stuffed animal. We have an actual spider, and I had my Indiana Jones moment of like, why does it always have to be spiders?
Yeah. As someone who has arachnophobia, I am very much not liking the robot spider version of the organic kind we have. I'm like, what could be worse than a spider? A robot one.
Yeah.
And as someone who has arachnophobia on VHS starring Jeff Daniels, I'm also very scared.
Excellent film. I think that's where it developed, actually. I watched it when I was like 5.
I often wonder if arachnophobia existed before that movie. Like, I feel like that name kind of put the disorder on the map, but
that's the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Hey, great. We'll just call it that.
That's what we should call that disorder, based on the movie of the same name.
Based on the novel Push by Sapphire. So
she's not fridge though. It's just webbed.
Right.
So step up.
Callback.
It burns. Sentinel rushes over to free her using his power, the shield. I think this is where we are learning a little bit more about Autobots and their powers and how it's fitting to their namesake. I mean, this is very fitting for Sentinel, right? It's knightly, it's defensive, it embodies the Sentinel ideal. And we've seen these individual Autobot powers before in the Lockdown episode, but now we're getting to learn a little bit more about them, about the lore and how they're connected to the name and how they choose them. And I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. And Elita tends to use her power on the giant spider. And we're about to see what Elita's power is, but I think this is so great because right here we have Optimus mansplaining her own power to her that it won't work on organics.
Classic Optimus.
Nice.
First with Sorry, trying to gaslight her into what the Allsport can and cannot do. Now with Elita.
Wait, Elita, you know the power you've had your entire life? That's not how it works.
I actually know how to use it better. Let me show you.
How much time do you have, actually?
Oh, hold on. Let me sit down and then I'll spread my legs first so I can just take up the most amount of room, be the most obnoxious.
Yeah.
Why don't you use that power to use your power of making sandwiches?
Quit your bitching, get in the kitchen. Like, it's like, stop. Stop. It's only
Speaking
okay because I'm a woman, I can say it.
But of course, this is not her plan. She is using this her power on an unconscious Sentinel, and we learn that her power is basically Rogue from X-Men, but for Transformers. She can like zap their powers. And I was trying to think of the connection here to her name. So like Elita-1, this is a very unique power. So maybe that's where the namesake's coming in, right? This is sort of like, we were kind of joking about it earlier, but it's sort of an elitist 1%. Like, you're the only one that can do this. Spoilers, we don't really see this existing anywhere else in the series. So I wonder if that's her special ability.
So what I would say, actually, because I had a similar train of thought and I wrote it down in one of my notes here, Elita in Latin translates to chosen, so chosen one. So I was like, oh, her power is like a chosen ability. Like she chooses to take what others have chosen for themselves, essentially. So I was like, maybe that's the correlation.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm reading far
totally
too much into it, but it's my job.
No.
So-
Yeah, I guess earmuffs, Mike, but we learned that their names are directly correlation with their abilities, and they're actually given their names based on their abilities. So
that would be interesting, and I did not know that. So that's a cool little fact that I learned as well.
Yeah, awesome. So Elita gets Sentinel's shield, but she turns it up to 11. Like she just boom. It's like a way better shield. Like this
uses it better than he does.
Yeah. And she saves the guys, which I love, but only for a second, because then more spiders arrive. My breathing quickens even heavier. More spiders, and Sentinel, I think, in an unusual show of selfless heroics, he fends them off and tells the others to go on without him. And I thought that was really cool. I liked seeing Sentinel have a nice moment. Usually he's just kind of a cocky douchebag. But here he sort of like saves them. And I really liked that. And I just thought, like, what a great character, though, because he's so well written, because from the first time we see this character, we kind of get his whole deal, right? He's cocky, brash, he's headstrong, and he has a problem with Optimus. But now, 9 episodes in, we're already getting to turn that on his ear, just because in such a short time, we've kind of known what we need to know about this guy. We can already twist it. I think that's just superb writing.
No, exactly. And again, it kind of harkens back to what we were talking about earlier with them being this close trio and stuff like that, with him being in this protector role and like protecting, maybe not so much Optimus, but like making sure Elita can get out of there. It's like, my objective here is that she can get away from the situation. I'm the one who is currently going to assure that and have that assurance.
Yeah.
Which again is like, later on, when Optimus clearly drops the ball and she is in peril, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, we're back at square one. I double dog hate you now.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Seriously.
It's like, you had one job, Optimus.
Well, and one brief thing I wanted to touch on here, we were talking about the Autobot special abilities, and there is something definitely uniquely special about Elita-1's ability, because every special power we've seen so far is external. Like it's a bit of hardware, it's a bit of kit. Whether it's like Optimus's grapplers, Sentinel shields, Bumblebee's stingers, Ratchet's EMP blaster, that kind of thing. Or even later his magnetic powers. But they're all like handheld items, or at least some kind of external thing. This is the first, I think, that it's a true like X-Men superpower. That's something beyond just like, or even like Prowl's decoys. That's still like it's on a different level. It's like an external thing, whereas this is like something like very internal. That's like very much like a part that's uniquely her, which I thought that was very fascinating.
I also thought like maybe this is kind of their way of doing almost a callback to Elita-1's time stop power in, G1 that we saw, where it's like, it's very much kind of like this internal power that she has that like kind of like comes from her spark or whatever, is like directly tied to her life force. So without giving her that exact same ability, because clearly that would have drastically altered the plot, I kind of thought like to myself, oh, maybe this is kind of their way of like giving her that uniqueness, that oneness, and a little bit of an Easter egg callback to it being like internal versus the external in terms of like special ability.
Yeah.
Again, reading far too much into it.
No, that's what we're here. That's what we're here to do.
It's literally why we're here.
I was like, how granular do we want to get? Because
you want to take this at surface level? Get the fuck out.
Yeah, this is not the podcast for you.
We're going to the quantum level.
yeah, exactly. You're going. Yeah, going to the quantum realm. Was just the beginning. Oh man. Yes. But yeah, so like you had said, Michael Anders, Sentinel kind of covers their retreat, and Optimus rolls out, and Elita along with him, and she calls out his name. She says like Optimus, and that kind of gives our transition back out of the flashback
and we see that Sari has emerged, and now it's Sari calling Optimus's name, and now it's time to show off her costume.
Yes,
which was sweet.
I love this moment so much. Lita, you don't even know how adorable this is, because we've been seeing so far in these episodes just these little subtle scenes of how much Sari looks up to Optimus. Like, obviously her and Bumblebee have paired off in this show, but she respects Optimus so goddamn much, and it's just so beautiful to see like she's, you know, even in a funny way, she's like hero worshiping him.
Yeah, wants
I
to
just
like
think
emulate
that's such a
him,
nice touch.
and like and like physically be like him, like, you know, exemplify him and honor him with a costume and stuff. I was like, I don't have the same connection with these characters because I haven't been on this journey so far for the series, but even I paused and I was like, oh, it's enough to make a grown man cry.
Well, yeah, I think it gives credence to the vocal performance here, because even in the short time you've been with Sari, you kind of knew that this wasn't just I'm dressing up to make fun of Optimus. This was like, this was a heroic moment for her too, and just wanting to look up to the big guy.
Yeah, a sweet little homage. It was very touching, very touching.
But I also love her impression. Well.
Ooh, look at me. I'm Optimus Prime. I'm scared of spiders.
Yes, like 3 crying face emojis.
Yeah.
The great Tara Strong at it again. Nailed it.
Yeah. Perfect.
Oh my gosh. And I love this reaction from Optimus, because this TFA is starting to become God tier Optimus for me, because like he is a dad-like figure, and there are times that he is aggressively uncool. And this is one of those things where like I love this little bit of defensiveness from him. He's like,
"That's not what I sound like." Is it?
You know, that kind of thing. It's like defensiveness cut with self-awareness, which I really appreciated. But my very favorite thing in this sequence, and I didn't appreciate the impact until my rewatch, you know, going through the series. Like, you know, Michael Andrews knows all about this, but like I as much as I have disproportionate affection for Optimus Prime's acts, it literally touches my heart when anytime Optimus says transform and roll out, you know, because it's just like that you know, that classic iconic line that, you know, sparks off all the nostalgia. You get all the serotonin and stuff and all that. So when Sari says it and she's like
transform and roll out,
I remember thinking it was funny when I saw it the first time, but seeing it this time in this context just really affected me on a whole completely different level that, you know, I haven't thought about this episode in 6 months. So it's like, it kind of snuck up on me. I was like, oh my God, she did the thing. That is so cool.
And it was French kiss. It was just perfect.
Yeah, I literally wrote in my notes, Sari says transform and roll out, Seibert equals waterworks, ?
Definitely.
It's like, this guy's gonna be blubbering.
Yep.
And then from here we get the best scene in any Halloween movie. This is when you know you've peaked Halloween. It's the town trick-or-treating after dark scene. It's a staple of all the movies. It's tough to do it right, to make it really feel like wholesome hometown Halloween. And I think this nailed it, right? We get the faraway shot. We get all the kids out trick or treating.
Comrade Kid out there getting his goods.
Yeah. It's so trick treat.
It's the KGB, you know, as it is.
It's like the Bernie meme. I'm no longer asking.
Give me all your candy.
But yeah, we see, but we get a glimpse of the spider creature. More spiders. Bumblebee sees it too, but nobody else does. And I love the animation in the scene of Bumblebee crawling all over Bulkhead, like he's a spider, right? Like he's trying to like mime what he saw, and he's just doing the little like crawl all over the big guy. It's pretty cool. And then I mentioned this in the last time we covered this, Mike, but and they bring it up too, but Optimus has been listening in to their conversation the whole time. And how long has he been doing this? Has he been doing this since we've met these characters? Yeah.
He wants to be a part of it, but he doesn't want to be a part of it, which I can respect. Like, I'm an introvert too. It's like, I want to be with my friends, but I don't want to be with them. So.
Right. Well, and it brought up a whole thing for me of like virtual trick-or-treating or like virtual anything. Like, can we just go along for is this maybe like the precursor to like watching video gamers play video games on YouTube without having to actually beat the video game? Like, is he getting the experience of trick-or-treating without actually having to be
do that all the time. That's how I know what's happening in video games, because I can't play them for shit. So you are absolutely correct. That's how people like me consume it.
This is
calling myself out here.
This is going to change my whole life. I don't have to do anything anymore. I just got to rig up an earpiece on someone that is.
Just watch it on YouTubes. It underscores something here. It's like, is it just this occasion, or is it all the occasions? Is Optimus secretly a creepo?
Yeah. Well, and Bumblebee asks, and I think it's great because Optimus doesn't give a definitive answer. We still don't know if he's been listening in, if he's going to continue listening in.
Right.
Well, and it's like it's almost kind of like, you know, your helicopter parenting trope in anything and in real life. It's like he's monitoring to make sure they're okay, but it's also like, okay, is it a trust issue? Like, does he not have that trust yet for, you know, his subordinates and stuff like that to go off on their own? Is like it's a trust and control thing, maybe it's an anxiety thing, maybe, or maybe he's just even more on edge because he's in this triggered state, like, you know what I mean? But it is an interesting note to have with Optimus, but also one where it's like, I think it is true to his character, and it comes from that place of caring ultimately is what I would take it as. But I'm interested to see if that tracks for either of you, because it is creepy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that Optimus in this series is nothing if not fallible. Like he is a very unique Optimus in that way. He's not like the self-deprecating Optimus of the comics. He's just not that good at what he does. He was kind of thrust into this role, and here he is.
But he's also not a dum-dum.
Yeah,
I'm gonna throw the Allspark into the space brig.
Yeah, and he definitely doesn't have the martyr complex. Yeah,
multiple shots fired.
He's not a great leader, but he also wants to live. That's what makes him a very unique Optimus Prime.
Yes,
I can get behind that.
Yeah. Something we've never seen in the character before.
That is the American presidency in like every iteration. I'm not a great leader, but I do want to survive my term.
Right. So he Optimus decides to roll out, and that because like it's something like when he and B are talking, he's like, spiders, oh man, springs into action. That's what spurs him on, and as he rolls out, we roll back into flashback.
Yes, yeah. And then we see that Optimus has been separated from Elita-1 and Sentinel, and he stumbles upon the Decepticon warship. And unlike where this would have been like a big treasure hunt moment for Sentinel, this is just wonder and awe from Optimus, our resident history buff. This is why he's here. Like even though all this danger's happening around him, wow, it's a huge piece of history. And Mike, we were talking about way back in the first episode, we're living in this weird world where people don't even believe Decepticons exist anymore. Like, we've gone so far from the Decepticon war that like people don't even think that they're a real thing. So this must be a huge moment for Optimus, seeing this ship and being like, okay, everything that I just believed on a core level is now for sure true. I think this is a really cool moment.
And then it's also tainted with that, like, oh, but there's also like death and danger behind me as well. So it's one of those where I imagine it's quite bittersweet, because it's like, oh, like, man, I would have loved to have the time to like look at all of this. And it also,
I wish I knew if my friends were dead or not.
Exactly. Well, and it makes his actions later on even more telling, I would say, and even have more gravitas to it behind it.
Yeah, totally. And so on this ship, he also finds Energon, exclamation point.
Actual Energon cubes.
Yeah.
Like real G1 Energon cubes.
Pink
like,
Energon cubes, yeah.
Like totally. Nicely stacked, too. It's just like, oh.
Soundwave was hard at work with these ones, boys.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
And this is actually my favorite Optimus moment in the show, and I think this is like a great David K moment too, because the way he plays it when he goes, "What do you know? Sentinel was right."
Energon cubes. Huh. What do you know? Sentinel was right.
Like there's something bitter there, but also like he's kind of making fun of Sentinel, but you can tell he's also pissed because Sentinel was right about this one thing. He wanted to be like the history buff. He wanted all the knowledge of this, and damn it, Sentinel was right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting here. So, like, shortly before we get into the oval Energon, which is not Energon at all, I didn't clock this the first time. Didn't really think about it, but for being wreckage of a Decepticon warship, first of all, who knows how long it's actually been there, but it would have been, I guess, kind of going more into the macabre since it's a Halloween episode. I could have used some dead Decepticons, or at least like an arm or a leg or something, because the presence of a Decepticon warship doesn't necessarily prove the existence of Decepticons. Because even prior to the events of this show, like Michael Andrews was saying, folks that believe in Decepticons are kind of kooks. They're like truthers in a way, or almost like flat earthers almost. It's just like, you're full of shit. Decepticons weren't real, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think I don't know if that's deliberate or just not wanting to have that kind of stuff in a children's cartoon, but this time through, I found it a little odd that there isn't at least like a carcassus or like an arm or a hand or something, and maybe even that would have like underscored the menace of the spiders, also.
Right. And I mean, the one thing I did notice was there was this one shot where he's looking about the cubes. You see what then becomes Black Arachnia's helmet. So I was like, okay, so was that a Decepticon's previous helmet? Is that from one of the spider bots? I don't know what we refer to them as here. You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, so she obviously uses that. So it's not technically a part of her. She dons it. So I was kind of like, okay, so there is body part of unknown origin there.
Yeah.
But it is, I do agree. I would have loved to have seen some carcasses, because I am morbid in every sense of the word.
or even this, because and it's funny, on this watch through, something knocked loose. I was like, I didn't see the helmet this time around, because I remember when Halloween time last year, we spent a lot of time talking about it, because that's something that stuck out to me on that first viewing. Totally missed it this time around. I was like, oh yeah, that's right, there was like a helmet or something there.
Well, yeah, similarly, I didn't even notice that helmet at all until the previous time we watched it. That was my first time catching that helmet and being like, oh my gosh, there it is. So that was kind of interesting, even though I watched it every year. I'm so happy I clocked
this Elita Easter egg on the first time. Like,
yeah,
oh my God, doing my job right.
Swish.
So there is a part of me that almost wishes that they would have made that even more explicit. Like, let's say this is like a helm on a dead Decepticon, and Spider Lita like grabs it and says, because like there is, I mean, jumping way ahead, there is the part where she's obviously malformed in some way, because you see the red eyes in the blackness there, but like, and again, this goes to the economics of the storytelling. We almost don't need our hand held to be like, oh, I'm terrified by my appearance, I must now don a mask. It's just there. You kind of pick up that shorthand. But now that we're talking about it on this level of depth, I would have liked something maybe a little more explicit, where it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe just like the head falls off of a dead body or something like that. Just something to really, really sell it. because really, other than her line later of like, you know, the Decepticons get me in a way that you Autobots never do, there's really nothing to explain how she gets connected with the Decepticons. Now, it would be interesting if the helmet actually had like a Decepticon symbol on it or something like that. Just like, I don't know. And this is one of the other fun parts about the show, because Michael Andrews has seen this entire series many, 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 many times. I have not. I don't know what's coming. I still don't know what's coming. I don't know what's coming. Coming.
Want to be a guest on the show? Send us an email to mikes2furious@gmail.com. Interact with us on social media. You can follow 2 Mikes 2 Furious on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 2 Mikes 2 Furious. And raise your voice. Leave us a voicemail message at 260-274-MIKE. Again, that's 260-274-6453.
But back to like the what I love about this episode, the Halloween component. It checks, like, this episode in particular checks a lot of boxes for me. It's a Halloween story, which I've mentioned I love. It's also a flashback story, which is a trope that I love in just about anything, when you kind of get those interspersed flashbacks and it's sort of telling a story, you know, it's switching chapters, right? It's like, go back, I want to know what happens. It's doing that. Plus it's a little bit of a love story,
yes.
Sort of, kind of. And it's sort of got a heist caper vibe to it too, because, you know, in the flashbacks, they're sort of like raiding this old Decepticon ship. So it's kind of got all those elements in one. So I think it's a really strong episode just outside of, you know, the series as a whole.
Yeah, I almost forgot about the heist element. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why they're on that planet and in that ship and all that. I forgot about all that. It seems like he's got this phobia of spiders, and it is just kind of funny because it is just straight up Black Arachnia looking spider. I mean, because and that's what I mean. So like, even for like a first time viewer, I clocked that. I was like, oh, this is the Black Arachnia episode. Okay,
cute little
cool.
nod there.
Got it. And even then, when you meet Optimus and Sentinel and Elita, it's interesting. And again, thinking about things from like a toyetic standpoint, you can tell that the character design of Elita is basically a pre-tool of Black Arachnia. So I mean, you know, she's got the larger trunk, very similar body type, and a lot of like the same bits.
Well, she's great in this episode, and she's a really cool character design, Elita-1. And I love her sort of like rogue power, where she can like download other bots' powers. That's pretty cool. That's a nice little nod. And then also another box this checks for me. It's not as grand and storytelling wise, but I love Sentinel Prime. I know he's kind of like the asshole of the show, but he's such a cool design that I'm so excited to get any content with him in it.
That's man. So a couple other things to go off there. I didn't piece it together that it's Rogue. You know, like the absorbing power, because like it's interesting because like the first few times it's like Sentinel says it and Optimus says it, they're like, use your power, or she's like, okay, well, I'm going to use my power here, and I'm like, what is, and it isn't until like she does it a few times. It was when she like pops up with Optimus's grapple gun, emulate and duplicate other Autobots' powers, because like there's the whole contention of like, oh, you know, my power doesn't work on organics, but it was like what I love is that it doesn't hold your hand and explain everything. Like I delighted in having to actually watch the episode and figure things out through context, where it's like, oh, that's what her power is. Because like, they just keep calling it that. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll use my power, you know, my power this, my power that.
Well, and not to keep tooting Marty Eisenberg's horn, but that's something he's really good at. Like, I think a lot of cartoons now have kind of, well, they've definitely gone to like a shorter episode length, but a lot of shows have lost that sort of like, you know, don't talk down to the viewer, don't just hit them over the head with a hammer of everything you want to do right away. There is sort of this unpacking element to this series in general that's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. This flashback, it's the three of them. It's Optimus and Sentinel and Elita, and so because I think that's how they refer to each other, you know, Optimus and Sentinel. Yeah, are either of them Prime at this point? Like, is Sentinel Prime, or is that? I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but like,
yeah, I don't know, and I don't know if it's a spoiler or not either. I can't remember if they've kind of used that sort of loosely or what. I know. Yeah, I think maybe they are. I think maybe, I mean, this is totally without looking up anything. I think that'll be the fun of this, but I think Prime is sort of like not as high of a delegation as it is in the other continuity. Because maybe this is a little bit of a spoiler. Okay. Later on, we see Ultra Magnus, and the Magnus is actually the highest like ranking title. So I think it would, I don't know if they do say Prime in this, but I feel like it wouldn't be wrong if they did. Like likely Sentinel Prime is also a Prime.
Got it. So so it could be something like it's a lower ranked designation. So it stands to reason that either or both could be Prime at this point. It's more of a rank than a title. And another spoiler alert, why I love the series so much is because it does make Ultra Magnus like the best bot in the biz, and you know I'm a huge Ultra Magnus fan, so having the Magnus actually be like a rank is really cool. That sounds super metal. The Magnus, man. I love it. That's super rad. I also want to talk about the dynamic between these three characters. So in this continuity, and obviously never seen Lita before. I want to talk about and ask about the dynamic a little bit, because like their dynamic strikes me as almost kind of a Hot Rod Springer RC situation. Like, you know, in more traditional continuity, you know, Elita is more paired with Optimus, you know, but here, based upon how upset he is, it almost seems like he's either they're together or he's fixated on her or something. Sentinel seems way more upset than Optimus does when Optimus says that they need to leave. They need to leave Elita behind because, you know, they can't detect her life spark or life essence or whatever it was. We've seen that Optimus has this irrational fear of spiders, and everybody's picking on him about that.
First of all, I don't think there's such a thing as an irrational fear of spiders. They are very scary. Everyone has the right to be rationally afraid of spiders.
Maybe disproportionate is a better way to describe it, because again, it's like anytime he sees a spider, it triggers the flashback. It, like, you know, he has a very intense visceral reaction to it.
Yeah. And they have this great moment where when they first kind of spot, maybe I'm skipping around a little bit, but when they have that great moment of like Bumblebee sees the giant spider for the first time, and you're kind of, something's going on, and then you find out that Optimus has been like listening in. I love that.
Oh,
and he's like,
yeah.
have you been listening to this the whole time? And then that's such a great moment, because not only is this funny, but you're like, Optimus is sort of like, I was right, something's up. This isn't just a weird night where I'm remembering, you know, things, something's up, and he like rolls out and joins them. Like I really like that moment.
And then again, a great animation gag where you have Bumblebee zipping all over Bulkhead's just massive size. And I like what you can do with Bumblebee being such a small character and Bulkhead being such a large character. You can play around with that. And I thought that was really fun. And I think it's little moments like that again kind of indicate to me why folks think this series is so special, because you can't do stuff like that in a Netflix show, you know, just little bits of visual humor. But one of the things that I clocked, and I don't know the implications of the mythology of it, but at one point when Optimus and Elita are fighting these spiders, you see the Black Arachnia helmet sitting on the floor of the cave.
Yeah.
And I saw that. And again, I knew, basically once I knew what was going to happen, I knew what had happened. But I still don't know if I understood what the significance was of seeing that, and then how that ends up happening when she fully transforms into Black Arachnia. I wonder if she's